afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. And it is a good afternoon for Michigan football as the team continues to take shape via the transfer portal as we're into the second half. Second half of the portal where players can jump in. And then it'll close down, and then you can still add players, but you can't jump in the portal anymore. So there's that distinction, and Michigan we got players coming in, coming out, and the roster is taking shape more as each day goes by. So we have plenty to talk about as you might expect. It's Michigan. There is always something to talk about. At Michigan, we could talk about, well, this is team's blue blood, basketball. When it just comes to stories and interest, Michigan has always got something to talk about. I swear, when I got into this when I started working for the Maize and Blue Review, I was like, oh, it's going to be great during football season. It'll be nice during basketball season. But, there's these lulls in between the games. But no, it's action-packed all the time. There's rarely any downtime. And then we get our most traffic in the summer when there is downtime because people are starving for Michigan football and, basketball and other news. So that's just the way that works. Now, Michigan still has work to do via the roster and the transfer portal. And I've got names. There's probably, every hour or two you can add a name. So maybe a half dozen names of targets that have a high interest in Michigan. I just saw another linebacker from Utah going into the transfer portal, and nothing gets my antenna up like a linebacker from Utah going into the transfer portal. Actually, any position from BYU or Utah into the transfer portal, my antenna are up. And just like yours, you're looking at that. Now, Michigan basketball dropped their first game over the weekend, had a little over 48 hours, 50 hours to digest the first loss. Is the season over? Is this team a paper champ? We'll get to all of that. I saw Dusty May today. I said after the game on Saturday, I had two questions that I was going to ask Dusty. I asked those questions today, so you'll get the result of those queries coming up straight ahead. Also, hockey with an injury that we will look into and see if we have an update on Ivan Kovic, Michigan's netminder, who went down and had to leave the game against the cheap shot player from Notre Dame. Known cheap shot. Known goalie interferer from the Irish. We'll get in there. But we start with the additions for the Michigan football team. And as always, we take your feedback as we move through this show. Like John is a staple here. It's good to see him. So additions wise, Michigan, I don't know. I should have written down exactly when it happened. They picked up a couple of wide receivers or a wide receiver tight end. But I'll say that the biggest name, I was calling him, and there's so many names that come in, you see them, you do your best job being able to pronounce them. But then the more interest they have in Michigan, the more attention I am going to give them on their name. Well, initially there was a wide receiver, and it looked like there was a player that played for UCLA that I really liked, and his name was Jaime, and he got drafted by the Heat. He ended up being he is a pretty good pro. So when I saw the name Jaime or Jamie or Jamie, I thought, all right, it's one of those. And I just went with Jaime because I looked at the interesting stylistic last name, and it was spelled F and then two F's at the beginning of the name, and then Rench, which looks like French, but French or Jaime Ferran. I didn't know, so I was putting a little flair to it. Well, it's Jamie French. It's a very nice. It's a very nice name. All this Jaime French or whatever. No, Jamie French, wide receiver, highly rated wide receiver that went into Texas. Didn't get much run for the Burnt Orange this year, but he goes into the transfer portal and Michigan lands him. So French is coming on up to Ann Arbor. And so the wide receiving core is taking shape. In addition, over the weekend, there was a tight end / wide receiver hybrid. To me, that means guy probably isn't much of a blocker, but plays closer to the line, but you can split out. And his name, I didn't look up any pronunciations or everything else because it looks like J.J. Buchanan. And so they were able to add J.J. Buchanan, the tight end room, wide receiver room. Maybe they're all sit together, and then maybe he just has to cross over the aisle to the wide receivers, to the tight ends. I don't know how that goes down. A question that I can find out in the certainly months ahead, if not weeks or days. Also, Michigan, we know that Bryce Underwood, it was the big news that he was coming back. And then immediately people want to know, well, who's the backup? You're looking at the guys that were here last year, and you're saying, wait, so there's Herb Street and there's Smigel, and Michigan hits on a QB signal caller out of the state of Colorado State. Brandon Fowler Nicolasi, or BFN at QB, played a lot of experience, has started a lot of games for Colorado State. I'll immediately declare him as QB2 for Michigan right now. So, yeah, a lot of attention goes to the quarterback position. Whole hell of a lot of attention goes on the starter, but then you're always wondering who's one snap away, and it's Fowler Nicolasi. Does it really roll off your tongue? Here's Fowler Nicolasi, letting one rep downfield. That's all right. We'll get used to that. Maybe it'll be BFN unloads one. I gotta maybe work on. We'll work. We got time to work on that. So I thought that was good news when it came down to it. Michigan finding a backup quarterback. They're in the market. They were in on a couple other different guys, at least one I can think of. But, so they get Fowler Nicolasi. So that's where things stand right now. But I noticed last week when Michigan was able to retain a player that was on their roster, even a starter, some people are like, what's happening? Why aren't they adding more players? Well, even the players on your team, if you get a good one and he's coming back, I think you should embrace that, enjoy that. And Michigan got a couple guys. Well, let's see. They got Jair Hill, a.k.a. Shug Hill, Michigan's starting corner. A lot of experience for Shug Hill, and he's coming back. I find that to be good news. Now, they've got to keep adding when it comes to the secondary. Zeke Berry is coming back, but you had Jaden Sanders, who had a nice in a couple different spots. He was forced to play, and he graded out well. Looked pretty good, Jaden Sanders, but he has gone into the portal, and he has since landed with Notre Dame. So he gone. You have, well, now that we're talking about guys that are coming in, some of them, Ty Haywood has hit the portal, highly ranked offensive lineman. So he's half gone. He could still come back. Half gone doesn't sound probably he's got a foot out the door, but as we have seen with a number of players like Zeke Berry, you can have a foot out of the door and then you can come back. So we will see when it comes down to Haywood if he is going to end up coming back or not. Brady Priestcorn, injuries, never got on the field for Michigan, or when he did, he was doing backflips and got himself hurt and then never was able to get out there. He's at Ole Miss, went into the portal. Ole Miss. He was the very highly rated tight end. Looking forward to seeing him in the maize and blue. And that doesn't look like it's going to materialize. Elsewhere, TJ Metcalf is in the portal. His brother Tevis also in the portal. And then Jimmy Rolder, who I think had eligibility left. A lot of people were hoping that, Jim, myself included, that Rolder would come back. He's going to the NFL. So good luck to Jimmy Rolder. Never forget the Northwestern game. I think that's the game that he jumped out and showed out. Was fantastic in that game. So there it is. All kinds of different players. Jordan Young, I see his name as I just take a glance over at the feedback. Michigan would, I think, want to bring Young back, but if it's not Jordan Young, well, there's a corner from Utah named Smith Snowden that Michigan is in on, and so they, just like they've got a linebacker from BYU, Ulave. I like the name Ulave. Ulave. That he was in visiting, and then there was just another linebacker. I don't know if it was from Utah or BYU, one of those two. I know that they're rivals, so me saying same thing is not really true, but it was one of those. Let me see the linebacker. A BYU. So you got a couple BYU linebackers. Ulave, who was at Cal. I don't know if he ever actually played, but he says BYU. And then Max Elford, who's also a linebacker. Michigan needs, they can just keep adding. They've got an entire week here. And it looks like they've got I don't know. It looks like they've got a system that they focused on keeping the players that they could. What players could they get? And then it looked like they moved to the offensive side of the ball, and then they went defensive, and they went by position group as the days unfold. We're all just sitting here watching it and watch it play out in real time, and it can be distressing. And there's a note on that. Most of everyone that's watching this, you like how the team is taking place and are taking form. Grab this guy from right field, this guy gone, he's coming, he's visiting. Who are all these guys? And it can drive you a little crazy. Most people, you don't even have to be, I know if you're a casual. Maybe most people are casual. Most Michigan football fans will wait till the dust settles, and then they'll look and say, oh, well, this is the roster that they'll have next year. Wow, they got a lot of different guys. So, a lot of guys from Utah, a lot of guys from BYU. Not a surprise there. But we are all the people that have followed recruiting over the years. I mean, this is recruiting to exponential. The way that it's unfolding, dimensions, or a fifth dimension, how this all works. And there's a part of when you're a recruiting fan that you just love it. You just love chasing the big fish. You love the chase. You love all the particulars. And there's a lot of people. I had a friend of mine texting me over the weekend. He said, college football sucks now. It's all about the money. And I said, what do you it's different. And so if college football has been about the money for a very long time, the presidents and the athletic directors, they have been all about the money, getting it for themselves. Well, now that the players are getting a little bit of it, it's turning some people off. The part that turns people off is that it's just front and center, and it's a lot like the NFL. You know, we're all sitting around here. None of us are making millions of dollars, and then these guys, we don't like. We wanted. We liked it. A lot of people liked it below the table. You didn't have to hear about player X getting $1 million, and I may be confused about it all. The NIL, who's coming in to replace this guy, who's hitting the transfer portal, who they're really going after. And it's hard to keep straight. But there's a lot of people that love how this is all getting pieced together and they enjoy it. And it will change in a year. And in 5 years, it may be a completely different system. I don't know. It might be a completely different system next year. And so for some that like stability, and you'll say tradition, but stability, really, you kind of know how things work. College football has changed a lot that way. It's all over, you get the playoff, the NIL, transfer portal changes every month. It's like, here's the new calendar. Wait a second, I just got the old calendar. 2 signing days, 1 signing day. Coaches all go up there and complain about it. It'll be different next year, and then it'll be different the following year. So that's where we're at. It can, if you like the thrill of everyday adjustments on your team and on your favorite sport, well, then I think you like this time of year. Oh, that's where I'm at. I want to take, before we get to some basketball and hockey outlooks, let's go through and get some of the feedback. What's up, Andre? Mr. Martini, this is Michigan, for God's sake. Is that what Brady Hoke said? I knew a doctor at Michigan. Her name is Dr. Newman. There was a lot of stuff going on and all those things flying around, and she stopped her staff and everything. And she said, "Let's get this under control, folks. This is Michigan." I thought, wow, I'll always remember that. And I have. Joshua getting into the particulars. I had mentioned Snowden, and now Bracey Jr. Any update? The update is Michigan is waiting. Michigan is interested, and those things can happen at any time. But I don't have a forthcoming announcement that one of those is imminent, that they will be with Michigan, but definitely interest for sure, JG, when we're talking about Snowden and Bracey. Michigan Go Blue 1324, not to be confused with Michigan Go Blue 1234, who is the same person. He has just changed up his password. Offers up that the Big Ten refs are paying us back for Stallions. In all seriousness, thoughts on the football recruiting? Well, you really, if you want to get me going, just start talking about the officials and, obsessing about officials. And, I'll yell, and then for 5 minutes, I'll say a bunch of, I would say smart things, but it's actually stupid. Because nobody wants to hear about, let's not zero in on the officials. So I'm going to move that part out. And I've been talking football recruiting. So that's what's going on right now. John loves it. John will get 10,000, 20,000 people watching his YouTube when anybody has a forthcoming announcement or something, they plan it, he'll set up shop and 100,000 people will be tuning in, waiting for the news. Underpar says Sanders was a big hit. Maybe. If they don't get anybody to replace him, he was a good player. He's young and he showed promise. But let's see who they replace him with. And I'm not automatically going to be, let's say it's Snowden. They're great. Don't worry about it. But because we won't. Actually, I think Snowden right now is a better player. I think. What was he? The second team, All Big 12. Sanders showed great promise. There's that Jaden Young. Okay, Hadley Smith. This is the real Hadley. How many recruits for this last recruiting class have signed, and what players stand out to you from this last class? Well, the Carter Meadows on defense stands out, and on offense, the running back Savion Hyder stands out, and Malachi Lee as an offensive lineman stands out, and Travis Johnson as a wide receiver stands out. I think most of those guys, maybe not Lee, you could all see contributing in the near future, if not next year. Jester is excited. Jester, you're excited for Michigan football. This is okay. I'm not knocking you. I'm with you, actually. This can be very exciting. I am going to go with you. I am excited right now with how things are folding or unfolding. Folding, I would not be excited. JJ just read an article by Josh Henschke, and he says the DB room was poisoned. Like I was saying, Morgan spent all last year babysitting, and that's why the development was minimal. Also, when Morgan left. Well, I have not read that particular story yet. There's a part of me, look, last year, we've got plenty of things from last year to look back on. But here's going to be my point. It's nothing against Josh and talking about if that's what he said, it was poisoned, or nothing against Tony Garcia from the Free Press, who I saw today and had his story of people in his ear, their shouting match with, Wink and Sharon and Sharon storming out of me. That stuff's all fine, and people like it, and people really like the drama. There's a part of me that once you turn the page and it's over, going back and talking about people, it's not behind their back, but Lamar Morgan, he was a babysitter. All of his guys were a bunch of crybabies, and well, some of these guys are coming back. So did they just get the guys that are should they have just cleaned house? And so I haven't specifically seen, like I said, the story, but you're just saying the DB room was poisoned. Well, if it was poisoned, was it multiple players? Are we saying that Sanders, who hit the portal, he was poisoned because he's gone? Are we laying it at his feet? Was it Morgan as the coach, or was it the head coach with the trickle-down effect who was sitting on a throne of lies the whole time? Say, I don't know. It's fun. I know. I shouldn't say it's fun. People like it. people like knocking the team from. Let's take Wink and put him on blast. I was actually, up until Wink started wearing his fishing hat for the last game and stuff. I was kind of just bidding him farewell and, hey, thanks, Wink. And then he kind of went out he went out like a punk. So he got on the bad side. JJ giving a little more context as Morgan left and double soured the drinking well in that room. I see a quote there. Was that a Henschke cult? Here it is. Now the show is taking shape. Now we have not Ripstar in the house. It's all happening now. Under par 68 asking the question, do teams just take the Metcalf's little brother to get TJ? The brother has no value other than that. Well, I would say probably, but just because Tevis didn't get any run for Michigan doesn't mean you can't develop. And so, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Tevis is just a package deal, and he's nothing. It's kind of like when the Greek Freak, when the Bucks drafted his brother or brought him on as a free agent. It's kind of like when LeBron and they drafted Bronny. They just take him to make that guy happy. Now, TJ Metcalf is not the Greek Freak or LeBron James. Cut from a different cloth, wants to talk money. Let's do it. All about the money. Everyone else was getting paid by billions and multi-millions. It's about time the talent gets a portion to which they rightfully deserve. I agree with that. What I'm saying is I see it online every time something happens. Somebody's like, this college football is going to hell. And then my friend, he is a casual college football fan. He said, actually, we were talking about something else. And he's like, oh, you must hate football. It's college football is ruined. And I said, no, it's not ruined at all. Michigan didn't have a very good year, a little disappointing year, not being able to get into the college football playoff. Bryce Underwood was a little bit disappointing because he was a little bit underwhelming, even with everything and being 18 and everything. But no, Sharon Moore exiting like he did, that was a little disappointing. But the sport overall, I was watching the college football playoffs Thursday and Friday, and I did think, it'd be nice if it was on a Saturday and they were back to back. When they first started the 4-teamer, they would have it on New Year's Eve, and I was partying it up with hot wings, blue cheese, bottled cage sugar, sodas, beer. Every nachos. Let's go. Friends coming over. And so it was a big party. Well, it's a random Thursday, and then we have a college football game. It ended up being a really good game. Ole Miss. But that was a really good game against Miami. But so you had them in consecutive days. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. They don't put them on Saturday because the NFL game's in there, and they don't want to go and go head-to-head with the NFL because a lot of us, not everyone, some people just like college, some people just like pro, but a lot of us would like to watch, both sides. So they've spread this thing out, and it does take a little bit of time to get used to it. And I don't think it's all perfect because by the time we get this adjustment, I've enjoyed these last 4 days. Football every night. You can't have the party every single night. The last 4 nights, party. Tonight, party. But as soon as you get used to all these games, well, then they'll change it up again. Why are you knocking people? This is a good question. I don't know the answer to it. Does the new president like football? The only thing I saw about the new president was that he went to Michigan. So immediately I would say he better like Michigan. He better like football. He better like sports. He's coming into a university that's great academically. They're also great athletically. And the alums and everybody associated with Michigan, they like the athletic department to be as top ranked and top notch as the academic. So, and it's a lot of visibility and all of that. So, but as soon as you say that, we have seen some like Schlissel. If you handed Mark Schlissel a football and basketball when he signed on as the new president, and you'd say, identify which one is which. Schlessel would have been like, I don't know. Let me go ask my side piece or so. I don't know. I don't think he knew the difference. So, yeah, hopefully. Let's just be happy that neither punched a fan this season. I kind of missed who we were talking about. Let's take some more feedback. Kenneth likes this because Michigan has money to retain players. Only ones who will leave are ones who did not get much playing time and are up in years. Well, if we're going to be, and I think we all are mostly just selfish, we just want Michigan, then that's okay. It sounds, I'll rephrase it. We just want to see Michigan do well. And there's nothing against any of the players or anything else. Go somewhere where it works for you, but you want to just keep all the good ones, and the ones that are not so good, good luck. Go somewhere else. But Michigan is one of those places that you think that they should be able to retain the majority of their players because of what you're talking about. I mean, it's Michigan, all the things that you're looking for: money, chance to win, playing time. It's everything. Under par doesn't like the 1-year deals. What's holding up long contracts, I think, is that you will get into unions, and then you are going to really get into, when you're talking about university employees and they get into this collective bargaining agreement, it's really going to make things more and more complicated, and the universities they're going to lose even more money, so that they don't want that. And so I don't think the players do either, but it is going to happen. I know I went from a kind of portal expert to now I'm a contract law expert, and so I'm getting into all this. I don't like contract law experts. When I listen to them, I can listen to them for about 30 seconds, and then they lose me. So anybody that is a young lawyer or is getting into contract law, make it so people can understand what you're talking about. John wants contracts. LFG Blue. That's nice. It's a nice handle. He says, maybe if we didn't let kids come back after they jump into the portal, we wouldn't have so many go. Having an open door to come back makes it easy for them to jump. Yeah, well, if I'm an agent and I'm stuck on a number and I have another team that's pretty close to that number, let's utilize as a negotiation ploy to get the ball rolling a little bit more, the transfer portal. Let's go ahead and jump on in there. All right. Ferris got to turn off the spell corrections as a Michigan fan with French and Heider. Now, I hear you on that. That happened to me. CFADC. If regular students can come and go, so should the student athletes. Let's go here. J-Mach says, looks like Jordan Young withdrew from the portal. Well, let me go back when we were talking about the poison DB room so we didn't include Jordan Young in that. He's a good one. Actually, I thought he was a good one, to tell you the truth. I did not. What was the game? I think that was Northwestern too. Didn't really see him out there a whole lot. I don't know. Boom! Made a big play. Did he make the biggest play? I think it was the Northwestern game. You are correct, sir, in saying that Jordan Young is back. I have a tweet sitting right in front of me right here. He's in the those who stay. I think I do this just for my own personal benefit. I like rewatching it and seeing me hold up my phone. There he is, Jordan Young. Yeah, I like playmaker. Toby, it's a little too early to start talking about next year and how many wins with the uncertainty. They could add another dozen players. Half dozen? I'll go with a half dozen. I think they'll add a half dozen more players. They could still lose a couple. 3? Still add 6? I think they should make the college football playoff next year. That's where my starting spot is. Smash the numbers. Colston Loveland was super deluxe for Chicago. I did something as a huge no-no over this weekend. I bet the Packers to start off this wild card weekend. I guess that wasn't the that wasn't the start. It was the well, let's go all the way back. This is where a couple big no-nos. I was in a postseason fantasy league, and I took all Rams and some Patriots and some but mostly the Rams. That's where I was throwing my lot in with Stafford and everything else. And I watched that first one. I was like, I can't. The reason I took all the Rams is that I thought that they had the easiest first game. And just give me one game. And I'm watching that game. And for most of that game, maybe not after the first quarter, but second quarter, third quarter, most of the fourth quarter, it looked like the Rams were going to get beat. Well, so then I bet the Packers. And this is where I made my mistake. I got into the second half, and I was counting my winnings. I even looked. I usually don't do this, but I was looking, and they're like, oh, you want me to take this buyout? Well, it's pretty – wow, I could only win a little bit more, but I'm up 18. No thanks on the buyout. I'm going to let this ride. And not only did I do that, this is the mistake. You young gamblers out there, never make this mistake. I said, I got the win here. I'm doubling down on the Bills. And so I took all of my winnings from the Packers beating the Bears, and I threw it on the Bills. And I was like, yeah, I got this wild card weekend, man. And then it happened. Somehow, you better get a field goal kicker. And Ben Johnson went for it 5,000 times. I know all teams do, but Ben Johnson from zone 32, let's go. And the Bears came back and won that. Wow. Amazing. It really was the best wild card weekend that I can remember. Ann Arbor fans, 71. Well, the other 70 Ann Arbor fans are all here too. He says he's curious what it means that the DB room was poisoned. Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to read that story and get back to you. It was JJ who said that it was from Josh Henschke. And so, Josh will throw some stories out there. Actually, like I said, I did not read that particular story, so I can't tell you anything more. I'm just zipping through here to see if I see any headlines that say poisoned Peter Bork. I don't know. I'm not sure. And like I said, it probably just goes back to Sharon being poisoned. Rip is always trying, not Rip. It's always trying to get me to say things. And so he throws some acronym up here that I maybe should be familiar with. And if I spell it out, I'm going to end up sounding like a fool. So I'm going to pass this time around. Ongoing there. People are enjoying in real time that Jordan Young is coming back. Here it is. Dave has been saying it for 2 years. Wink stinks. Yeah, say it louder for the people in the back, Dave. Wink, wink. He gone. He sucks. He coached a hell of a game. He had his masterpiece. Actually, he coordinated the greatest game ever with Michigan beating Ohio State 13-10 and completely shutting down the wideouts for the Buckeyes, completely shutting down the ground game, holding the national champs to 10 points. And then he followed it up with shutting down Alabama. So, yeah, he really sucked. But he's gone. So, I'm with you. Ron, moving forwards, thinking 15 for high schoolers, 10 for the portal, former 5 and 4 stars. Yeah. So once the portal happens, everything you get it. So you have your ranking in high school, and we get all that. You're a 4 or 5 star, but then you get into college. It's like the defensive end they got, John Henry Daly. He wasn't a 5 star. He wasn't a 4 star. He was a 3 star, but he was tremendously effective and productive at Utah. So he's like a 5 star. He was the highest rated defensive end of the portal. He was the number 4 overall player at any position to get out of the portal. So you can't. But meanwhile, Jamie French was a 4 star and was pretty highly thought of coming out of high school, but he didn't get any time last year. So saying, oh, well, he's a 4 star. That's it. Few things to get to coming in. The original starts this show at 2:30. So what Indy doesn't do is make mistakes. Indy. Who's Indy? Oh, Indiana? But they aren't unbeatable. Indy is pretty amazing. Mendoza and his wideouts look good. They've got a toughness. I get bringing in a bunch of players, spending a bunch of money and all this, but and so they have the coach who's been able to put it all together. But the way that he's put it together, I love, and every time I watch Indiana, it just takes another step where you say that's the kind of football I would love Michigan to play. They are physical, they are tough, and they can put up. And they've got they're relentless. Everything about them. I would agree that the Miami, better get those defensive ends home. I have not followed the Freeman story, so I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm not really sure about Freeman, so I just saw the headline, so I haven't seen any of that. Here's a text that's just coming in on my phone. It says Indiana is one of the oldest teams in college football history, having 47 players ages 22 to 25. Well, let's get the Michigan AARP angle going. Let's start bringing in some of those dudes that'll be the oldest guys at Rick's over in the corner and put them out on the football field. Let's start bringing some old dudes in. Oh, speaking of Indiana, he says we're going to see a lot more teams with older rosters comprised of players once rated at 4 or 5 stars. Indiana is older, but none were ever 5 stars and few 4 stars. It was Scar the last time we talked who was referencing the 4 teams that were in the college football playoff and their starters. Ole Miss, 15 of their 22 starters were via the transfer portal, 68%. Indiana's 64% of their starters, transfer portal. Over half, 55% of the U's, Miami's, and 45% of Oregon, who gets more 5 stars than anyone. 51 of 88 total starters from the transfer portal. That's almost 60%. That's it. Get down to it. We got some basketball. A lot of just going here, going there. Yeah, I don't. Like I said, there's a lot of Freeman talk, and I don't know what to say about that because I haven't followed it. Let me see if I have the latest on the Michigan goalie Ivan Kovic, who had to leave this weekend for the number 1 Michigan hockey team. As a Notre Dame player, slid into him. It looked semi-innocent, but enough where he had to leave the game. And afterwards, Brandon Naurato, Michigan's coach, said he was going to be out for a while. Do I have an update here? Latest. When did I look for the latest? People upset with the Notre Dame guy. The thing about the Notre Dame guy is that you see the video of the guy sliding into the Michigan goaltender. I got another video of that guy sliding into another goaltender. So he likes sliding into goalies. Here's John Bacon says, from his perspective, there was nothing dirty about this, except that if you were watching the games, it was a chippy game. The refs were letting a lot of things go. And this guy has a reputation of running goalies. So other than that, Bakes, it looked kind of innocent. I don't have an update except Naurato after the game said that he was going to be out for a while. Unless somebody has something else to handle it. All right. So that's what I had to say on hockey. That's a pretty big deal. Michigan's number 1 in the country. Ivan Kovic playing great. Great goalie. Had just gone to the play for Team Canada. I mean, he's awesome. Great goalie. So hopefully they'll be able to get him back sooner than later, and out for a while doesn't mean the rest of the season. And hopefully he gets back before I head up to Wisconsin. Now, that's a long time. I'm going to the Michigan-Wisconsin series this year in Madison, February 20th, 21st, 22nd, somewhere in there. That weekend. I was going to say, hopefully Ivan Kovic is back for that, but so that is a while. It's like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Hopefully he's back before then. But definitely hope he's back for that series. Since I'm going to be there. Let's go. Okay, we are on to basketball, who lost their first game by 3 points over the weekend, and screaming on Saturday afternoon. Mostly just, I'd watched all the Michigan games this year. They'd won them all pretty handily, and so when they finally lost, I would not have bet on it. I was not thinking that they really had any chance at all on going undefeated, but they had put up so many amazing numbers that even though you don't think it's going to happen, even though it hasn't happened in 50 years, you still we're thinking, well, this would be the greatest thing ever to see a team go undefeated. And so it was in the back of your mind, even though you didn't think it was going to happen. And so they lost. They didn't get embarrassed, but Wisconsin wasn't a very good team, and Michigan was on their home floor, so that part all stings. And then the game before was at Penn State, and they were sluggish in that game and barely held on to win that game. They won it. And then the other games, USC, they didn't shoot well. And Dusty was saying it had been a few games that some things were creeping in or whatever else. But after the game on Saturday, there are a lot of people complaining about Yaks being hurt and that Dusty didn't sit him out against Penn State, and now he's banged up, and that was a miscalculation by the head coach. And I started screaming, look, if you have a trainer and you have a player who gets cleared, hold on a second. You have a player that gets cleared. All right, maybe it's not going to work. My headphones are a little stuck. My cord. You got a player that doesn't get cleared, or he gets cleared. He says he's ready to go. And so you play him. And then the fans, when he doesn't look 100%, start saying, why didn't they sit? I understand that. And then he comes out on Saturday, and Robbie Hummel's talking about, well, he's a little banged up, and he doesn't look like the player of the year. So then they're like, well, why didn't we sit him? He still looks hurt. Bad move by Dusty. I said, well, I'm going to have to ask Dusty about Yax's injury. Not a fun thing to do. Coaches don't like talking about injuries. So I asked him about that. And then the other one was, why does Dusty not call a timeout? 7 threes in a row by Wisconsin. The big guys hitting 5. Dusty's just sitting over there. And he didn't have a very good game. He blew it. So the fans thought. And I think that not calling timeouts when the ball's just continuing to just, drop from everywhere for the Badgers was completely understandable. So I said, Dusty, what about Yaks and what went into playing him? And did you think about sitting him out? And is this something that could, if he sits for a game, you give him another, extra days, is that going to help him, or could he play through this and still be 100%? And I thought it was interesting that he said that he had just seen him yesterday, and he said he was looking better. So he was acknowledging a little bit of him not being 100%, which was interesting to me. And then the other side, he said that this is the downside of this era. And the era he's talking about is the transfer portal and bringing in, I think Yaks is a 6th-year guy, bringing in Luxembourg, is that he was saying that you just don't know what makes the guys tick with everything. He didn't use those words; those are my words. But he says you're not knowing. You're just getting a guy, and you don't know what he is working through and what the injuries and everything else. You want him to be honest. You got to have that that coach-player relationship where you can talk about it. But he said yesterday's better, much better. So I thought it was an honest answer, which you don't get often from coaches, about Yaks. He's much better, but yeah, he has, he's been banged up. And about not calling timeouts, Dusty is not a by the book coach. By the book, a guy gets 2 fouls, you're taking him out of the first half. By the book, team scores 2, 4, 6 points in a row, you call timeout. Dusty had a long answer. Basically, the answer was, yeah, he'd go back and change a lot of things now. But he was talking about at the time, their big man had made 1 3 in the last month. He also indicated that he watches the flow of the game and how Michigan is playing offensively. And, so if they've got that going, plus knowing that they have a deeper bench than the other team, that's, I think, why he is reluctant to call timeouts. Now, I asked him if he would have handled that game the same way if it was a tournament game, and he said no. So I'm thinking you're learning, even you want these games and you want a number one seed and everything, but you want your team to be able to adjust on the fly. He didn't like how they adjusted on the fly. Even when they were adjusted, they were making threes, and the things that they were prepared for, they didn't really prepare that much for, because Wisconsin's player had one of these out-of-body experiences that they hadn't seen before, and he had said that the whole Badger team probably went on a 10-minute run, the most efficient run of any team in college basketball this year. All of that added up to the Badgers going crazy, and they all fed off of one another, and ultimately they tripped up Michigan and gave them their first loss. All of that being said, Michigan had tons of opportunities from Gale, Namari Burnett, three-pointer. Namari could have sat out there, spun the ball around. He could have made a TikTok with his girlfriend and still fired. And, he just missed him. So that's what went down with basketball, and that's where we're at today. So that's it. Rashad says Wisconsin can play like trash for a month, but will play like the 96 Bulls versus Michigan. Well, that's true. And what happens is when you have a team that everybody's been talking about, that they're the greatest team ever with some of the analytics up to this point, with the 14 games in, which isn't it's not a complete sample size, but it's 14 games. That's a little bit of a sample size. So teams they were eyeballing Michigan, wanting to make a name for themselves. So you come in kind of loose, 18.5-point dog. Like, let's let it fly. That's how you beat. Smash wants to know about the Olympics. That's an easy thing to look up. Smash would go through the Olympics, Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics. When was it's 2 years ago, was the Summer Olympics. That was great USA basketball 2 years ago. It was Steph. That was the greatest. Hockey will be great. And then they're having like their own little mini Olympics that they do with the nations. That's pretty cool. I've dropped my glasses. That's not cool. But I had a spare pair right here. That is cool. It's all good. It's all good. Rashad, a little more basketball talk. That being said, Michigan has to do a better job in the three-point defense. I agree with that. Wisconsin won't shoot like that again this year. Probably not. I mean, how many times have you seen a team make 7 threes in a row? Even really good three-point shooting teams, it doesn't happen that much. I would bet that any team this year, I'd like just to see the last 5 years that have made 7 3-pointers in a row in a game against any team. I would bet that they would be 100. I'd bet they'd all be undefeated. They would have all won those games. I don't know if you can look that up. I don't know. It seems like you can look everything up. What team has made the most consecutive 3-pointers and lost a game? I'd like to know that. It doesn't really remind me, but now when I'm thinking about, so I guess it does remind me of 3-point shooting, with Trey Burke's number being retired next week, National Player of the Year. I don't get many of those guys running around, but so Trey Burke getting to that national championship game, and You had Spike Ulbrich in the first half having this out-of-a-body experience, and he was so awesome. But then Hancock. Did that guy make 7 threes in a row? Hancock from Louisville just goes ham, just goes crazy. And it felt like, I don't like bringing up officials, but it did feel like the turning point in that game was when Trey pinned that Cardinal on the glass and got called for a foul. And if that game didn't remind you, the other time that Michigan, maybe previous to that one, because they played in one other national title, but the time when they played North Carolina, the Fab Five, Donald, what was that dude's name? That guy went crazy, and I never heard of him again. Donald. His last name Donald or his first name Donald? I feel like his last name was Donald. From North Carolina. That guy made like 10 triples. It's like Hancock made 10 triples against him. The tournament's not for, you could be so good and you can lose. In the tourney, a team gets on a run like Wisconsin. That came out of nowhere. That's the great thing about the tournament. That's the worst thing about the tournament. If they could play best out of threes in the tournament, in the tournament, I'd feel pretty good about Michigan winning it. But one and done, you play a team like Wisconsin. It's crazy. Yes, that was a block. Oh, Rashad, you're pretty good. You're good. Donald Williams. I think I've got a number somewhere for Trey Burke's agent. Maybe I should give him a text and say, what's up? I get Trey on the podcast. Maybe I'll look for it after the show's over with. Dusty. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I don't know what I would have proven by finding it now. I wasn't going to text him right now. Well, that is going to do it for this show. If you would like to continue the fun, and who doesn't like to continue the fun of the transfer portal, of the roster taking shape, the coaches, recruiting, basketball, hockey, all of it. What am I saying? I'm saying join the Maize and Blue Review. Get 50% off the Ultimate Fan Bundle. You get the Maize and Blue Review. You get On 3. You get Rivals. You get a year of The Athletic. Get out in there, 50% off. Go to Rivals, go to on3.com and double click it. Get instant access, and we will see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. That's how it's done. Take your Michigan fandom to the next level. It's talking about out-of-body experience. That's what it is. It's constant Michigan talk and stories. Good night. Good day.